We've got a lot of information to share with you, but again, let me state unequivocally that my job as a journalist is to always push back, right? I mean, that's what I do. Ask questions, to be that check on my government that is necessary, because that's what we should do as patriots. That's what we should do as parents if we love our kids. Push back on them. And I love my kids and I love my country. So yes, we on this newscast push back, because history has taught us that wars and bad foreign and domestic policy decisions are often made when not enough viewpoints are considered, or when only those with something to gain are the ones who get their way. So it seems to be potentially with Iran these days. Why rush to condemn? Why seemingly want to rush to war? Here on this issue, and today's declaration by Mr. Coates, is RT America's Dan Cohen.
President Trump's top intelligence official, Dan Coates, spoke at the Senate Intelligence Committee about the threats America faces around the globe. Most of what he said is what you might expect. The U.S. is in an arms race with Russia, China, and North Korea sees its nuclear weapons as the way to prevent the U.S. from attacking it. But Coates' comments on Iran were striking.
While we do not believe Iran is currently undertaking activities we judge necessary to produce a nuclear device, Iranian officials have publicly threatened to push the boundaries of JCPOA restrictions if Iran does not gain the tangible financial benefits it expected from the deal.
That's right. The top intelligence official just contradicted what the president has been saying for years.
Today, I want to update the world on our efforts to prevent Iran from acquiring a nuclear weapon. The very real threat of Iran's nuclear breakout. Iran will have an industrial-sized military nuclear capability ready to go.
Intelligence officials aren't always telling the truth, but we can't assume the president is either. So who's right here? This is what the International Atomic Energy Agency said.
As of today, I can state that Iran is implementing its nuclear-related commitments. We have had access to all the sites and locations which we needed to visit.
Even Trump's own State Department certified Iran was in compliance with the nuclear deal. But it's not just President Trump who has twisted the truth on Iran's supposed nukes. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu did too.
We're going to show you Iran's secret nuclear files. These files conclusively prove that Iran is brazenly lying when it says it never had a nuclear weapons program.
But according to the International Atomic Energy Agency, quote, there's nothing new in the material that Netanyahu revealed yesterday. All of it was information that the International Atomic Agency already had and has already commented on. Back to you, Rick.
Legal expert, writer, and naval intelligence expert John Jordan on the issue of what is going on in Iran. Many Americans look at the situation in Iran and they're a little frightened by the fact that we seem to be extremely aggressive. Suddenly we hear today from Dan Coates that Iran has not violated, at least according to him, the nuclear accord. What gives here, John? I'm confused.
Well, first of all, as a legal matter, other countries, friend and foe alike, know that if you wish to have a treaty with the United States, it has to be ratified by the United States Senate. Mm-hmm. The Iran deal, or the JCPOA as it's normally called, is not a treaty. It could not get passage in the United States Senate, and was opposed, in fact, by many Democrats long before Trump, including Senator Schumer, who wrote a passionate and detailed op-ed piece explaining why he opposed the agreement and would not support it as a treaty in the Senate back in 2015. Mm-hmm. Now, the JCPOA, the Iranians are seemingly in compliance with the nuclear weapons portion of it. But what most people don't realize is there's two technologies involved. There's also the ability to build the delivery systems, which is actually more expensive and more difficult to do. And the Iran deal does not seek to address that, nor does it seek to constrain Iran's aggressive behavior throughout the region.
So you agree?
So for these reasons, why should they get the economic benefits?
So you agree, I don't mean to interrupt, but you agree that we should have nuked the nuke deal with them then, which makes me want to ask, Why, John? Why, if we have an opportunity to have a deal, even if it's only for 5 years with a concurrency of agreement with somebody is better than going to war with them, isn't it?
No. Well, first of all, it's a false choice. It's not the alternative here is not war with Iran or accepting nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
The alternative here is simply we are going to have the sanctions which have been in place by administrations of both parties for decades to constrain Iran's behavior financially. It's very expensive to develop nuclear weapons and the delivery systems, which is even harder to do. So we're going to make them. There's no reason why they should be rewarded for their behavior throughout the region.
So who are we, though, to be telling them what they can or can't do, and even further, to be telling someone like China that they can't deal with Iran? And the reason I ask this is because there's a lot of bad players in that region. I mean, for example, we choose to be extremely aggressive with Iran, and yet we accept just about everything that Saudi Arabia does. Aren't they as bad or almost as bad?
Well, no, they're not. The Saudis don't have territorial ambitions and threaten their neighbors. Iran does. Iran exports troops and violence throughout Iraq, Syria, and Yemen. The Saudis are merely minding their own business. You or I may not approve of everything in their society, but they're not behaving aggressively. Now, with regard to us with China and Iran, we're not telling the Chinese what to do with Iran. In fact, in the sanctions, we gave China a waiver to actually be able to sanction, in a sanctions-free way, purchase Iranian oil. So we gave China actually a pass on this.
All right, I'm gonna skip to another question about Israel. I could certainly press you on the Saudi Arabia when it comes to Yemen, for example, which most people are saying, certainly in this country and at the UN, that they haven't exactly been acting as great citizens. But let's skip that. I want to go right to Hezbollah and Israel. Most people would say the only reason we're being aggressive with Iran is because we're doing Israel's bidding. Your response to that?
Well, we're not. We respect those countries that are run as democracies that are our friends and allies. Israel isn't trying to expand its borders or spread its faith, as is the case with Iran and Shia brand of Islam. Iran is seeking to do that in Syria, in Iraq, and, by the way, in Yemen. I do have to come back to that. The Saudis are actually. People forget that in 2009 the Houthi rebels actually invaded Saudi Arabia, occupied villages, and killed people. And the Iranians are seeking to get a foothold on Saudi Arabia's southern border. So they have a right to some degree of self-defense. Passionate responses, passionate discussion as usual. We can have these kinds of disagreements because it's a very important issue. But by the way, and on this I know you will agree, these are the kinds of conversations we should be having about the situation in places like Iran and Venezuela, and we're not having enough of them.
Hey YouTube, thanks for checking out our channel. We hope you enjoyed the video. We have tons of content for you just like this. For more of RT America's one-of-a-kind news and analysis, be sure to subscribe and never stop questioning more.